Merlin, I have a good question for you today. I think people will like it.
Okay.
So
let's do it.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what is the best thing to do after competing. So many, and the reason why I'm asking that is because so many people, especially when they first compete for the first time and diet so hard and get the shape of their life, a lot of time afterwards they crave so much food and so much stuff. Many times, including myself, they'll gain like 20 pounds in a week and completely annihilate all the all the work you've done for like 4 months. So I wanted to ask you, what would you think is the best way to go from competition shape and to settle back into, I don't want to say off season, but kind of normal life a little bit, but keep your condition as best you can?
Well, that's a really good question, because I think that the old traditional method of bulking up after shows is kind of like...
It's fattening up.
it should be called getting fat. I think that's kind of died out to a large degree, and I think people are beginning to understand the value of not putting on so much fat in the off season, or at least they should understand the value of that. And then I think maybe even social media has actually even had a lot to do with it, because people are always on camera now.
Yeah.
You know, so they always want to kind of be in shape for their videos, so on and so forth. So I think that it's kind of affected the way people think about diet as a whole. So the first major key, listen, when you've been dieting, 12, 16, 20 weeks for a show, you've been doing way more cardio than you normally do, you're posing, you're training, your body is in a completely depleted state, physically, mentally, emotionally. So I'm sure every single person who has competed, who's out here listening, or even done, really restrictive diets, knows what it's like to start craving all kinds of foods. During the diet, you start craving sometimes even sweets and foods that you may not even normally like. Just everything starts to sound good to you. And a lot of people start fantasizing. Instead of thinking about the actual show that they have coming up, they're fantasizing on what they're going to eat after the show. So, people would tend to, and again, I've done it as well, like you said you've done it. I think pretty much probably every single person who's competed has done it. They've just gone nuts, after a competition. I mean, I remember, real quick story, when I got my Natural Pro card, which is ironically, I won here in Las Vegas. I was staying at a hotel which had like a 24-hour cafe. I think I was downstairs every 2 hours at that place eating another junk meal. I think I probably gained about 15, 20 pounds overnight.
Oh yeah.
Terrible. It's terrible. You feel miserable.
It's dangerous too.
It's dangerous. Yeah. It's really not good for you. It sent some people to the hospital in extreme cases. So it's definitely not a good idea. So I think, it's very fair for somebody to finish a competition and want to have a few cheat meals. I mean, you deserve it. You worked hard for it. Your body can deal with it, relatively well for the first couple of meals. So I mean, after you're done with a competition, you go out with your family, you go out with your friends, you have whatever it is that you're craving, you have a dessert, great. Still, even with that meal, I wouldn't go so far as to completely stuff yourself to the point that you're sick. I think that's pushing it too far. I think you should just eat to the point where you're pretty much satisfied, you're full, and it felt great to have that meal. I also think, the next morning, you should go out and have a good breakfast, and again, enjoy the meal, have some things you've been craving, some foods you haven't been able to eat. But again, don't go so far that you make yourself sick. I think when you push yourself that far, you're just overload. You have to remember that you've been dieting on such low calories, and when you diet on low calories, your stomach shrinks, and its ability to deal with a certain amount of food goes way down. But psychologically, you're so hungry that you force it past that point, that you literally, bloat the stomach so much that you can. That's when you start to make yourself sick or put yourself in a precarious situation where it could be dangerous. I think if you start going past 24 hours and you're still in the cheat mode, that's when you're going to start running into problems, because you could literally in 24 hours, you could put on 8 to 10 to 12, if you're a bigger person, 15 to 20 pounds of water. That doesn't feel good, that doesn't look good. So I think after 24 hours, start to rein things in. And this is the important time now. So what are you going to do now that you're going to have to kind of normalize and go back on your plan? I think you should pretty much go back to the diet that you were utilizing before the show. And I don't mean the calorie-wise, the macronutrient-wise. I mean the same good foods that you were eating before. Maybe you start including some, maybe you weren't eating a lot of fruit. You could start putting some fruit back into your diet. Maybe you were only eating egg whites. Now you can maybe throw a yolk or two back into the... So those little changes are fine, and they're necessary and they're needed. But go back on the same basic plan, and I think you should... I always tend to reverse people out of diets by going back to about the calories and macronutrient levels that I had them on at about 12 weeks from the show they just competed in.
I see.
Because at that point, it's still a strict diet, it's still controlled, but the calories aren't so low like they were, once you get down like 3 weeks out. So I think it's a good, fair place to start to normalize your body.
So you restart the cycle at the beginning, kind of.
Yeah, like I go back almost to the beginning of the diet, or maybe, if they started 20 weeks out, I might not go that far, maybe. So I'm saying about 12 weeks out is a good, fair place. And again, I'm just speaking a little bit in generalities here. So say you dieted for 16 weeks or so for the show, maybe go back to the 12-week out diet, and just use that as a starting point. For no other reason, it's a good starting point. It'll start to get rid of some of the water in your body, and you'll have enough calories to start to feel good and feel strong again. Get back in the gym and start training. You also have to remember another thing. You're not going to go back into the gym and start doing 60 minutes of cardio in the morning and 30 minutes at night. You're not going to be doing that. So you're going to be doing a lot less cardio. So you're not going to need to worry about that part of it. So you won't be burning as many calories. So still at 12 weeks out, that plan would probably work well if you just go back to, and I do suggest just on the side that you do go back to doing cardio, but light cardio, maybe 20, 30 minutes a day. It's always good to have that in your program. Especially, and I think, like I said, we're speaking to people here who, want to stay in good shape in the off season. Now, do you need some body fat in the off season? You do. It's hard to deal with. We all want to stay shredded all the time. You and Dave, we were talking before how you want to look exactly. We looked on show day all the time. You can't do it. Yeah. And it's not conducive to making progress in the off season. The body's too depleted, so it needs to have some body fat. Doesn't mean you need to bulk. Doesn't mean you need to get a shape. Doesn't mean you need to lose your six-pack. Doesn't mean you need to lose your vascularity and all like that. You should still look like a bodybuilder all the time. But you do need to have some calorie surplus in order to gain muscle. Otherwise, the body, think about calories, is kind of like, you're building a house. If you don't have enough material to build the house, you can't make a bigger house. So you do need to have the material, which is the calories. So, start, at about the 12-week out diet, put yourself there, and then gradually increase the calories.
Okay, I was going to ask you. So let's say you decide to not compete until 6 months or later on the road. So you kind of increase the calorie instead of going back down again.
Yes, you have to always remember that a very important point is that once losing body fat is very difficult. Losing a lot of body fat is very difficult. But once you've lost that body fat, you can actually maintain that body fat level on a much higher calorie intake than you did before.
Because your metabolism's racing.
Your metabolism's racing, and you've reached a new set point. So your body is kind of used to holding less body fat. So you'd have to really kind of force it a little bit to start to gaining a lot of body fat.
Okay.
So once you get down there, you can actually eat more protein and some more carbs and a little bit more fat and still hold that low body fat level. Yeah. So I would increase the calories very, very gradually, depending on when you're going to compete again. There's going to be a difference between if you say I have a show in 3 months, 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
Differences.
Yeah.
But increase the calories a little bit, maybe 25 grams of protein per week, maybe 25 to 50 grams of carbs per week. Do that for maybe the next week or 2 weeks, and then see how your body's looking. Make sure you're happy with how your body's looking. Make sure you're starting to feel strong in the gym again, and then try another calorie increase, a little bit like I just said, and add just little bits to your diet, whether it be protein, carbs, fats, and see where your body weight is going, see where your body fat is going. And if you start to get to a point where you're looking at yourself and you're saying, I'm starting to accumulate too much body fat for my own liking, or my show is, only this period of time away, so I can't gain any more body fat, then either pull back on the calories or maintain your calories where you are and start to add a little bit more cardio back into the equation. So it's not rocket science. It's like kind of just do everything gradually, add in the calories gradually, assess how you're looking or have your coach assess how you're looking, and then make small tweaks or changes as you move along in order to keep your body fat where it is, but also be diligent about keeping yourself in a mode where you're gaining, because you don't want to look the same from one show to the next. You want to look better from one show to the next, which generally means having more muscle on your body. So I think that's kind of the best approach. I think the key takeaway points is try to keep your cheats to about 24 hours after a show. Don't go any longer than that, because then you really start to go from gaining water weight into starting putting on a lot more body fat. Plus, again, keep the meals, even your cheat meals. Don't get insane, because it's dangerous. It's unhealthy. It could raise your blood pressure. It could cause serious edema. It can cause huge insulin spikes, all kinds of problems. So, make sure you do that. And then go back to a diet plan a few days after the show. I think somewhere around 12 weeks out from a show, which is going to be a good solid plan to start with, and then gradually increase the calories each week, just a little bit at a time. It doesn't have to be much. And then assess your body week to week. And once you reach a point where you're happy where your body fat is, then you can maintain that level of calories. If you're starting to gain a little bit too much, pull back a little bit or add some cardio. And I think that's a good basic way to reverse out and begin to start gaining again for a short off-season period or a long off-season period.
Love it. Thanks, Merlin.
All right.